Hey everybody, David here, and welcome to the ASOG podcast. In this episode, we're joined by Brandon Steckler, an instructor and curriculum developer with WorldPac. He's also a contributing editor with MotorAge magazine and has hands down the best pressure waveform class available right now. Brandon has spent the better part of 20 years working in both dealerships and independent repair shops, and provides critical advice to technicians looking to turn their job into a worthwhile career. For shop owners, he brings a technician's perspective from someone that has made it his lifelong goal to never stop learning. Before we begin, if you're on YouTube, please take a moment to hit that like button. It's quick and really helps us out. If you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. If you're listening to this on your favorite podcast listening app, make sure you're set to automatically download the latest episode so you never miss an upload. And now, here we go. Yesterday and today, we're so behind on work. I'm like Lucas behind on work.
Oh, that
so
sucks.
I'll shoot a video and show you that just lines of cars. Just
I am. Do you know how behind I am? I am out of parking spots.
You're always out of parking spots. That's normal. That's your normal operating. And that's not me though. I can't pay. I like knowing that either everything's being fixed or it has been fixed. So I don't have to stress about it. I don't like stressing about it. I prefer to be like, oh, it's 1 o'clock. Everything's handled. I'm leaving.
Well, look, the problem is that I'm using everybody else's parking lot too. I think we're 42 deep right now. Whatever.
Oh boy.
We'll fix them one at a time.
This is what we do, Brandon. By the way, we bitch about our day.
and that's the other thing about this show is that it's super laid back. Right. Mm-hmm. Is we're not trying to make it something it's not. We're not trying to make it all perfectly rounded and everybody saying the perfect thing that everybody wants to hear. Right.
Sure.
It's really just us talking. And that kind of comes from this concept. And one of the things that we said when we kind of started the podcast is that one of the best parts of training is sitting around with a bunch of guys who have been through what you're going through right now and realizing you're not alone.
Yes, I agree with that.
Realizing that, hey, somebody else is struggling with a car, somebody else is struggling with something in the shop, profitability, whatever it is. Everybody struggles. And I think that as we do this show, if we don't show that, especially right now with no training happening, there's a lot of people who look at it and say, man, I wish I could be like that. Mm-hmm. They really don't, I promise. So
it excites me to see people that are driven. Always, I don't want to use the word intimidated, but it always made me feel like when I see someone who knows, like you building a shop, right? I don't know if I'd have the guts to do something like that. So when I see someone like you do something like that, actually carrying it out, it impresses me. It makes me, it makes me feel like lesser of a person, lesser of a go-getter, if that makes sense.
Well, listen, I'm just going to put this out there. I am not sure if I'm up for it yet either. I'll let you know in a couple months when I don't have any money left.
He's out there on a backhoe. What are you talking about? He's out there with a backhoe digging dirt.
Listen,
he's not
there is a difference between a backhoe
when he says
and a
building. I don't know any of the terminology. He's on some piece of machinery, digging ditches, and he's actually laying the dirt out. So when he says he's building it, he's actually building it.
Yeah,
because he's too much of a cheap ass to hire professionals.
I don't even want to hear it. Besides, I can just kind of have my time away from the shop, and like all these times that you go to the bank, David, and all this extra time you spend at the bank.
I'm doing stuff when I go to the bank. I can't sit on the machine and work the knobs back and forth. I can't do that. That's not. See, I'd go nuts. I would.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I'd make it 30 minutes. 30 minutes, and then the ADD would kick in, and then something would distract me. I got to go do this real quick, and then gone, and that's it. And I'd waste the $7,000 a month or whatever the hell it is you're paying.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brandon.
Yes.
What's up, man? How you doing?
I am doing phenomenal. Thank you. How about you guys?
I'm living the dream, buddy.
We just bitched for like 10 minutes. What are you asking us for?
Well, I figured you'd feel better now that you got all that off your chest.
No, there's more.
Oh, okay.
You're just scratching the surface. What are you talking about?
Oh, that's awful. That's awful. So, over the past couple of weeks, we've been interviewing technicians. And one of the things that continually kind of comes up within ASOG and the other groups is it's becoming more and more apparent that there's a divide between shop owners and technicians, right? And we keep talking about the technician shortage. Yet we keep losing technicians to other trades. I was talking to Jeff Compton yesterday, and they've got a Goodyear factory near them, and all of the techs are going to work for Goodyear. They're making more money, and they've got this like little tiny toolbox. Doesn't have any tools in it. Like, spend $50 on it, And so we've had these conversations over and over again, but it doesn't ever seem like anything changes. Nothing ever happens. And so, you've been a technician, you've been a trainer, you've been in all these different shops and all these different perspectives that you have had. I was hoping to have you on and talk a little bit about this divide and where you think it comes from.
Well, first I got to say, thank you both, Dave and Lucas, for allowing me to come on. I really appreciate the opportunity because for me, it gives me...
No platitudes. I'll cut that out. Stop it.
Well, I mean it that the opportunity to represent the technician and maybe speak for others, across the country or heck, even the world in similar positions, as well as shop owners too. I could see it from that perspective as well.
Right.
But I think, ultimately we've got to remember that a business is there to be profitable and they have to make money. But I don't think a way to make money should be, pardon the expression, being cheap with
right.
your technician's pay. I do think, I know it's been spoken of many, many, many times in the recent past about how we pay technicians, i.e. flat rate. It's just not conducive to the type of work a technician faces nowadays.
Right.
We talk about diagnostic work, and then we talk about mechanical repairs, and heck, even service. It's really involved nowadays, and we have to be extra careful, more so than we were in years past, because of just how delicate and sensitive things are nowadays. So to pay a technician on a flat rate scale, I don't think, I'm trying to be careful how I word this. I don't think it's conducive to good quality work when the idea of a paycheck comes from how fast you can crank that work out.
That makes a lot of sense. It really does. And so one of the things that always comes up is it's not just money, right? It's not just how we get paid. It's as a whole, is it the equipment in the shop? Is it the training you provide? Is it the culture in the shop? And like with my team, I was talking the other night, we were talking about how we pay our techs, and we do have a production bonus system. They get paid for 40 hours, right? If they're here 40 hours, they get paid 40 hours. But so many people came up and said, well, is that not flat rate? Well, no, because they're not depending on hours to get their paycheck. But they were saying, well, you still have the same quality problem, right? Because they're pushing to get work out just so they get more hours. And I said, hold up. In our shop, the culture that we have, these guys look at that car as their child could be riding in it. It's passing their wife or their child on the highway, right? It's not just to them about another car in the door and out the door.
That's fine to say, though, Lucas, but the problem is, how do I say this? It's too intangible.
Right.
And so
I can understand that.
Well, the only way that works, like realistically, the only way that works is if the base salary is sufficient for the tech. If the tech's happy with the base salary. Because if they're not, if the only way that they can make a quote unquote good living, or they can go to an acceptable salary in their mind, is that they have to not only meet 40 hours, but they've got to crank out 50. now we have a problem. We're sort of back to it's a roundabout flat rate.
Well, and
because what if the guy hits 30 hours, but like he's getting paid for 40, but 40 is not enough. Like he's looking at it going, if I don't hit 50 hours, I'm not making a good paycheck. Therefore, I'm going to, like Brandon's saying, I'm going to speed up. I'm going to cut corners. I'm going to find a way so I hit 50 hours because that's when I actually start making decent money.
And that, that makes sense. And on top of that, there is another challenge that plays into that. And that is the fact that, are you hearing that?
No.
Hold on, I'm hearing a hum. It's going to drive me nuts. No, it's gone. We're good. Sorry.
Helicopters are coming.
That's it. No, listen, David, you paid your taxes this month. It's okay.
I had to pay you. Why'd you bring that up? I got my income taxes done. I did my FUTA and so much payroll taxes. So much payroll taxes.
Poor thing. But in all seriousness,
hey, you know what I ended up doing? Hold on, because you got me on this real quick. You know what I ended up doing? I calculated out to the flipping penny how much I needed to withhold for my technicians in order for them to end up with a net zero at the end of the year. Now I might be off a couple $100, but I'll pay that a couple $100 at the end of the year. In other words, when they do their taxes, they're going to end up owing nothing and receiving back nothing. That includes the one with a kid. So I have one with 2 kids. So he essentially pays 0 in income taxes because by the time he gets his earned income credit for his 2 kids, he's going to end up owing nothing. But he all year long he pays almost nothing in payroll taxes. So that's what I ended up doing. So everybody got like a bump on their checks, and they're like, "Hey, what's up with my paycheck?" And I go, "I recalculated your taxes," and they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to owe at the end of the year." I'm like, "Maybe a couple $100, but I'll take care of you on that. Don't worry."
That's all.
Just so I could avoid paying the mother flipping payroll tax.
You're awful. So,
well, I had one tech though. I had one tech specifically. I know this is going to go sideways, but I had one tech specifically. He goes, I told him, I said, "Hey, you got to go meet with a financial planner. I'll get you set up." And he's like, "Okay, well, how much do you think I need to put in?" I said, "Well, shoot for 75 a week. 75 a week. By the time he hits like 55 or whatever, he'll be a millionaire." And so, and that's, looking at whatever 20 years or whatever average on the return in the market. And so, I said, "Shoot for that." And he's like, "Oh man, I don't know. I could probably do 25. I said, "I'll tell you what, you do 25 and I'll cover the other 50. And so I gave him a raise. Plus I covered the, I slightly, he had already been tweaked on his taxes, but I did a tiny tweak on taxes to make up about $15. The rest of it, I just gave him a raise on. Plus he was going to turn into 25. So you can start putting $75 a week. And now they're sending me the paperwork, so it's automatic. They don't even see the money come out of their paychecks. It just goes into specifically a Roth IRA, which is post taxes. So it's going to be free money for them, unless things go really sideways in the country and they're like, "We're going to start taxing Roth IRAs." But that money is going to be free for them when they go to pull it out.
That's awesome.
In their 50s.
That's great.
And we brought a financial advisor in for all of them and had them meet with him. And so that's something that we've worked on, especially with Bridget, because, I keep looking back thinking if I had thought about where I wanted to be in 15 years, I'd be in a whole lot better shape right now if I hadn't just spent all that money.
They'd be sitting on 6 figures if all of them had. My oldest tech's 35. But if like 10 years ago he had decided, "Hey, I'm going to do this just $75 a week." I pay them weekly, but it's $75 a week. 10 years later, they're sitting on close to 6 figures or 6 figures, depending on how the market's doing. Right. I mean, that's a chunk of money. Yeah. And then it just grows from there. So even if they had to stop at some point and they couldn't keep putting in the 75 a week.
Well, and here's the thing is that we talked about, to kind of jump back into the episode, we talked about that in previous episodes that, you can only do this for so long as actually turning wrenches. And if you're going to work at a shop that you don't have that opportunity to have something that protects you when it's all over and done. And one of the things that when talking to the financial advisor, I think that was wild to all of them, he told a bunch of stories about people who thought they had another 10 years, thought they had another 15 years, thought they had another 20 years, and something happened. And it was really interesting to see their reaction to that, because you don't know how much time you've got left, and you don't know if you end up on disability, man, that's a tough one, right? If you don't have disability insurance, that's a tough road to hoe. And so I think it's really important as shops that we're trying to at least offer those types of packages. And we're talking to the techs because, they may not see that, especially your younger techs, right? They just see that money coming in and they live paycheck to paycheck. Man, that's a really fast way to end up in a tight spot later on in life.
Well, let them pay the work. It depends on the person. Like, I'm a spend whatever I got in the bank account kind of guy. I manage my money terribly. But so you put in systems. You put in some way, some mechanism to remove yourself from the equation. And that was the purpose. Let's not even let you spend the extra money.
Right.
Let's set it up so you don't even see it. And it gets sloughed off into an account you have absolutely no access to. And it'll just accumulate. You won't even notice it. And most of the time, that's the idea, is make it a dollar amount that is significant enough for it to grow, but not enough that they'll notice it and go, man, I wish I had that extra $75.
Yeah.
Right.
Or whatever the dollar happens to be.
I wonder how many shops offer something like that.
A bunch of them do. But the thing is, like, they set it up as a 401k, which is fine. But at least with an IRA, one, it's a Roth IRA, so it's post-tax money. So when they go to retire, they're not all of a sudden getting hit with income tax.
Right.
And then two, an IRA gives you a ton of flexibility on, the type of products you can buy. Now, within the shop, if you're trying to save money, you can set up a simple IRA. We talked to Hunt about this.
Yeah.
And then if you have to start socking away a ton of money, then you go to the 401k. But again, the idea is the small shop, the shop that just needs something for their technicians to set them up. Because the idea is, like, I want to keep this person around for 10, 15, 20 years. So not just to use and abuse them, but how do I, set something up for them so that they're taken care of at the end of their lives or at the end of their career when their bodies just cannot handle the workload any longer.
Right. And we just set something up like that. We're going to do a simple IRA for our guys. So that's the direction we're going.
Yeah, but you don't have to, that's my point. You don't have to do a simple IRA. You don't have to do jack. You just have to send them to the guy. Like, hey, go set up the account and then come back with the paperwork and I'll do the rest. And then, you just have to decide on the dollar amount, which is why I started tweaking the taxes, because most of the time everybody looks at it as a payday when tax time comes, which is just an absurd thing. You've been giving the government whatever, $1,000, $1,500, $3,000, $5,000 of extra money. They paid you no interest on that. And you see it as a gift that you're getting your own money back. No. We have an anti-tax culture at our shop.
So, Brandon, you see what we do half the time we have a podcast. So where were we? What were we talking
about? Flat rate. Brandon does not like flat rate.
Well,
and did the shop owners look? We had this conversation at ASOG. There was a bunch of shop owners that chimed in, and really, this tends to go one way or the other. Everybody starts piling on against flat rate, or they start piling on for flat rate. I hadn't seen the for flat rate thing because those guys tend to stay silent. They don't say anything. And the guys that are anti-flat rate, they start talking about how it takes advantage of the technician, and that's why we're driving away technicians, all the arguments that everybody makes against flat rate. Well, we just had a conversation about it in ASOG about the flat rate, and the 4 flat rate guys started actually speaking up And one guy in particular, we're going to have him on the podcast. I think his name's Cal Baker. Isn't that right?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Yeah. So, I think he owns 2 or 3 shops. He said something like, what do you say, 40 years in the industry?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I've got the receipts. I've got years of numbers to show how effective flat rate works and how good it is.
Mm-hmm. I think, my opinion, because I've been there and done that. Actually, I was flat rate most of my career. In a situation where a tech is healthy, limber, intelligent, and hungry, I'll use that terminology, wants to work, strong work ethic, I think flat rate is a phenomenal way to pay a technician because the technician actually benefits when there's plenty of work. Let me give you, for instance, I worked for a dealership years ago, and it was a very small dealership. There was only 4 technicians at one point in time. We actually had 5, but typically we had 4 technicians for the entire facility. And all of us would easily do 85 to 100 hours a week. And one of our technicians was insanely fast. And gentlemen, I'm being honest when I tell you he had well over 150 hours in a 40-hour work week on many weeks, many occasions.
That's crazy.
And believe me, this guy was lightning fast. And we've all heard that adage, the right way, the wrong way, and the flat rate way. Understand that there are shortcuts that I see people take, and then I myself have taken them, that not necessarily to make the job done the right way, but certainly done safely. And whether you agree with that or not, that's the way it is typically when technicians work flat rate. Not all of them. I don't want to upset anybody, but you can be very profitable as a flat rate technician if the work is there. The downside is this, guys. When I was at that same dealership and we had just one of those weeks, you guys know the weeks where just nobody comes in, there was a bad storm, back to school. You guys know it's near Christmas time, and things just die off. Those same shop owners and those same managers and upper management will frequently say, now listen, you guys made a lot of money this year. I don't know why you're whining about 1 week. Me as a flat rate technician, I said, hey pal, not for nothing. I was here at 6:30 this morning. I stood around playing with my thumbs all day long for nothing. There's got to be a way we can, this is 2-3 days in a row now with no pay, virtually no pay. I've got a half-hour drive one way. I jump on the turnpike. It costs me, $20, $25 a day just to get here. I have an investment just to get to work. I expect to be paid. Your job is to get the work in the shop. My job is to get the work done.
Right.
You don't like it when I don't do my job, so I don't care for it when they don't do theirs. So, again, I'm rambling here, and I'm sorry, but flat rate I think can be extremely profitable if it's set up properly. If we can get the technicians to get fast, not because they're rushing around, get fast because they're fluent, because they have the experience of doing the job correctly.
They know what they're doing.
Right, over and over again.
It's not even like you're absolutely right. So the pro flat rate guys talk about how that's critical. You have to be very busy, and you have to have the right systems in place to ensure that the technicians are well compensated for the time that they put in. So the tickets that they're getting are profitable for the technician. Does that make sense?
Sure.
In other words, they're not going to get hosed on a obvious 6-hour job, and they're only going to get paid 3.2 because the service advisor can't sell the work, or there's constant discounting happening. So that's what they point to that. But a lot of these smaller shops, that's not what they're being told. I remember my very first coaching company. I had a conversation about them going, hey, we have peaks and valleys, and we're a small shop. I've just got my first tech or my second tech or whatever, and I'm the service advisor, and I'm telling the coach, there's sometimes I worry about meeting payroll because, we're not busy for an extended period of time. And the quick answer was, oh, just make them all flat rate. And that way, when the shop's slow, I mean, you don't have to worry about payroll because you're only paying them for what they get done. And if there's no work, there's no work. This was a large coaching company telling a small, completely inexperienced shop owner, trying to find their way in this industry. That's what they were telling me. This was several years ago, but that's what they were telling me. And I guarantee you that the same company's telling these other shops the same thing. And a whole bunch of other coaching companies are telling these shops the exact same thing. Hey, I know it's slow, so make everybody flat rates so you don't have to worry about payroll.
Well, I just think that, in my opinion, being a technician, that really hurts because, we typically, technicians go out of their way to work hard, not only for themselves, but they're proud to represent their company, and they're proud to have customers that come see them deliberately. They represent the
Right.
company and they wear that on their chest proudly. And to have this outside company come in and strategically tell you, the shop owner, you can make more money by cutting somebody else's throat. I just think that's, I know that's business, but I just don't think that's the right way. That's the easy way, sure, but that's not the right way, in
Right.
my opinion, of handling things.
Yeah. Well, and it goes back to that transactional versus relational model concept, right? And
But
that you always,
they weren't pushing the transactional model.
well,
They weren't
I
pushing the
get that.
transactional model at all.
I
What they
get
were
that,
trying to
but
do is like, this is how you save money. Make
I
them flat
get
rate.
that, but in one way or another, it becomes transactional, right? It's a transactional concept because you're looking at dollar bills before you look at a human being, right? You're not looking at your staff and saying, I care about these people. I want what's best for them. I want to take care of them. Here's what I have to do to make that happen. You're not doing that. You're focusing on the dollar bills. And I think that,
I think though, when you're in that situation, it's not even about the person. It's not because you want to do right by your techs. Most shop owners do. I think the majority of them want to do right by them to a certain degree. I certainly didn't want to lose my techs, but at the same time, like I didn't have the money to pay them. So I was sort of stuck. I mean, I want to do what's fair, but there's no money in the bank account. Like, what do you do? So that was their solution. Rather than taking a step back and saying, look, let's try to figure this out. What does your marketing look like? What's your phone conversion look like? What steps are you taking here to ensure that this doesn't happen, that you don't have peaks and valleys or huge swings? You're going to have some, but you're not going to have huge swings. There are 1,000 other factors to look at, but that's not quick and easy. The quick solution is just make them flat rate.
Right. So, I mean, you and I talked the other day, David, about the cycle, right? And how this keeps happening over and over again. Tell Brandon what you were telling me.
Yeah, so Brandon, I was just telling him, and I'd like your thought on this. In my view, what ends up happening is you have a technician, a great technician, gets upset with the shop that they're in. They think I can do this better, or I can make more money if I do this all for myself. So what do? They leave. They open up their own shop. And they're usually cheaper because they don't have less overhead. They don't have any employees, this, that, and the other, whatever. They get flooded with vehicles and they're struggling. They're struggling to keep up, or they don't have any vehicles. They don't know what to do. They're freaking out. And what do? They turn to one of these coaching companies. One of these coaching companies, consultation companies, whatever you want to call it. Not all of them. I'm not trying to disparage coaching. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But a lot of them will push flat rate as being the answer. And they say, hey, you're not profitable right now. We know how to make you profitable. You just have to follow the system. That system ends up including either some type of hourly plus heavy bonuses or flat rate, just flat out flat rate. And they give you some kind of marketing tactic. And what ends up happening is the shop ends up getting busy, becomes very profitable. The shop owner now sees this as the way to get rich, essentially, or at least be well off. And so what do? They start doing everything that they hated about the shop that they left in the first place, because now they just want to pay the bills and now they want to provide for their family. They just want the business to be successful. And they sometimes forget about what led them to even opening the shop up to begin with. So what ends up happening is their best technician gets upset with them, leaves, starts their own shop, and then we start all over.
Yeah. It's like a cycle. Terrible cycle. I have felt that way myself, and probably the better part of it had to be at least 10 years ago now because my little one was still in mommy's tummy. I decided to do some moonlighting for some extra cash, and I realized very quickly, when you're not you're not doing it properly, and you're not adequately paying Uncle Sam, that money stacks up real quick.
Yeah.
So I had it in my head. I was, going to work hard enough to use that money and invest in myself and open maybe a small one bay facility somewhere with a lift and do things the right way and grow it to the point where maybe I can afford a bigger area and, try and do it that way. But at the time I was not, nor do I still consider myself a business savvy person. I have a lot of work. I know what I'm missing. I just have to do it. But no, I had that sense that, maybe I can do things better or at least more profitable for myself by doing it that way. I've worked for, I don't want to deviate too far off topic. I've worked for many, many different places, and it's a little bit embarrassing to say, but at the same time, I chalk it up to good experience. About 20 places in my short 22 years of doing this. Some places were repeat, as I left and came back because I moved out of state and then moved back. But I learned a lot about myself, about what I want, but probably more importantly, what I don't want in a shop that I'm working with. And I realized there's many ways to pay a technician. Like you said, there's hourly, there's heavy bonuses. I've worked where I've made very mediocre hourly rate, but at the same time, in a single week, I could earn an additional $420 additional dollars on top of my paycheck. So tremendous bonuses if you achieve a certain amount of work finalized. Flat rate, of course, and I have never worked at a place where I got a monthly bonus, but I know some technicians that have, or a bonus on parts and labor, total parts and labor. But oh, good Lord, Dave, I'm sorry, man. I deviated so far. What was your question again?
No, you're fine. I was asking your opinion on the cycle.
Yes,
they get moved into a shop and then they get upset. But what have you seen as the ideal way, in your opinion, of paying a technician?
Here's where I see things go wrong. Is when a technician, whether the complaint is legitimate or just sour grapes, approaches a shop owner or a manager, I guess it depends upon the position, how big the shop is, about their dislike of how they're being paid or how much money they're actually bringing home. Rather than the two of them sitting down and talking about a way that this technician can potentially earn more income, things get ugly quick, where if I want a raise, and if I don't get a raise, I'm going to leave. Or the shop owner says, I'm not going to give you a raise unless you do this. I think rather than having ultimatums and things set, I think a good, slow, quiet conversation is the best way to go about doing it because, ultimately nobody expects to make more money without doing any additional, whether it's workload or more performance, better performance. There's got to be a trade-off. Let's discuss those. Let's discuss what my potential is to earn more income, how I can go about heading in the right direction to do that. Can we set goals? Can we talk about setting goals, whether the goal is attaining a certain certification or maybe something performance related, like implementing a quote unquote fixed right the first time survey. I think
so talk about that. Expand on that a little bit, because you had posted something in one of the, I don't know which group it was. It was one of the Facebook groups. You posted something about if you expect to, and I can't remember the wording exactly. And it was essentially saying that if you're not increasing your pay to your technicians based on their knowledge, as they increase their knowledge, their pay should increase as well. And if
Yes.
you're not doing that, you're going to lose technicians. That's why you have trouble finding technicians. Talk about that a little bit.
Right. What I said was, and I just pulled it up right here. I said, if you want to retain great technical and loyal staff, as an automotive technician gains experience and becomes a better diagnostic tech, I feel at least, it's reasonable that his or her pay should increase commensurate with accuracy and productivity. So what I'm getting at is this. I have been in facilities where I never was handed an official title or was talked about this, but I was basically put in a position to be the diagnostic tech or the go-to guy. I don't want to say shop foreman, but the go-to guy when there was a technical information issue, something was missing, there was a lack of understanding somewhere, or we're on strike 2 or strike 3 of this attempted repair and they want me to get involved. I did my best to help everybody, maybe not just fix the car and get it out, but maybe help the technician that was struggling with it to understand. So as a result of being able to do that for a couple years at this specific shop, I was very, very satisfied with my hourly pay. Now I was paid flat rate. However, I was paid such a high rate, such a high dollar amount per hour. Um, 40 hours a week was more than enough. So this shop owner, and I will never say his name, I don't want to put him on the spot, was extremely, extremely generous, but at the same time, he was a really tough old bird, and he had expectations of me. And believe me, if I let him down in any way, shape, or form, I was sure to find out about it very, very quick. But we had an understanding, and my understanding was that I was to do this to help prevent bottlenecks in the shop, and he definitely made it worthwhile for me. I could then earn when I was busy doing, I'll call it mainline work, and everybody seemed to have all their ducks in a row and nobody was having any hiccups. I could stay moving and earn additional money because now I was producing in the work bay. So being able to pay me more money, did that cost Mr. Shop Owner a little bit more profit out of his pocket? Sure, but at the same time, we weren't spending 2 or 3 days on a car with $800 or $900 worth of parts invested, and it didn't fix the car.
Right.
Right. In other situations, I was at shops where dealerships where the fixed right the first time score was kept track of, and if you were above 85%, I believe it was, you got a bonus. And if you drop below 85%, you lost that bonus. Now that works great too. However, we have to have something written to define what fixed right the first time is. I'll give you guys a for instance. Yep. Lucas, you pull a car in and diagnose it as a bad audio unit. However, the component is order by VIN only. So you order the parts, the lady leaves, she comes back on Wednesday, you're not available, so I replace the radio. I do a perfect job. I fix the car right on my first attempt. However, when the survey comes in the mail, was it fixed right on the first visit? Absolutely not. I had to come back. Well, in situations like that technician would have lost his bonus. So I think simple things, just little discussions and getting things down on paper, ideas on paper can really help.
Technicality like that?
Yeah. But for the longest time, I was missing my bonus. I said, I don't understand what's going on. I did some research and found out, month after month after month.
That sounds like a dealership.
It was. And we got it ironed out. We did. We got it ironed out. It was an oversight.
Are dealerships ruining the industry?
My opinion?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I think there's great things that come out of a dealership as well as bad things. And if you give me a moment to elaborate, here's the great things. It's structured learning in most scenarios, especially nowadays. Things are a lot different than they were in the 70s. You know what I mean? Where menus were a la carte. Come in and choose what parts you want. Do you want an oil change? Do you want an air filter added to that? You want fries with that? You know what I mean? I think those days are pretty much gone. Everybody is on a set maintenance schedule, for starters. Two, I think most dealerships technical staff are certified in some way, shape, or form. Do we have the green guy, the young male or female just out of high school or perhaps still in high school working part-time, changing oil and learning the ropes, learning how to set a lift properly, learning how to manipulate the tools that they have and how to properly research fluids and specifications and things like that? Sure. Are they certified? Likely not, but maybe in time they will be, hopefully. I think the dealership, well, at least speaking from my experience, having both dealership and independent side experience, the dealership set me on a path for learning because I got used to having to take classes and having to do research and what we call self-studies on the computer, these automated classes and tests. It just became a part of ordinary life for me. So it set the stage on what it takes to stay up to date on training. Here's the downside. Working at the dealership, specifically starting my career at the dealership, I became accustomed to how things worked at the dealership. In other words, when I saw an ignition system, once I became familiar with how an ignition system worked, I assumed they all worked the same way because, hey, that's how it works. And surely you gentlemen are probably giggling when you found out I left the dealership and went to the independent world. And that badge on the hood, that hood emblem on the front of the car that I was so familiar with, suddenly replaced with something different like Saab or Volvo or BMW. My world changed drastically. And it was an awakening for me, how little I actually knew about cars, although I've been working on them for 8 to 10 years at that time and doing successful work at the dealership. I was doing very well at the dealership, but still I didn't know my rear end from a hole in the ground when it came to other vehicles outside of that dealership. So I don't think they're ruining. I don't think they're ruining the industry. I think in some ways are helping the industry because of how stringent things tend to be at the dealership. I think it gives us in the independent side something to strive for as far as attaining correct tools. I don't know. I really don't know how to word it. I really don't think they're ruining the industry, though.
So here's my technician's experience at the dealership. I've had 2 technicians come from dealerships. Both of them had very similar experiences. One of them got stuck on the lube rack. He was in 3 years. Very smart technician, excellent technician. A little sketchy on the work ethic, but he was very, very good, very talented. Stuck on the lube rack. This dealership was first come, first serve. In other words, you're not going to get into the mainline work. You're not going to be able to do diagnostic work. You're not going to be able to do jack until one of the other technicians retires or there's more room or we expand or whatever. He was in 3 years and kept asking. So can I keep testing? Can I do this? Can I do that? They're like, yeah, sure. But we can't guarantee you a job as a tech. So they're still paying him as a lube tech and he has to work lube tech hours. The oldest or the longest tenured lube tech at that dealership had been in for 8 years. That's when I recruited him away. He's like, I'm never going to get a chance. And he was working on the line of vehicle that he wanted, that he knew best. He wanted to work on this kind of vehicle. He liked this kind of vehicle. He wanted to become proficient at it. I want to become an expert at this kind of vehicle. That's why I went to go work at that dealership. But he didn't see a pathway. There was no pathway for him. My other technician, he still works for me right now, was at the dealership almost 10 years, I think. Same situation. The difference, though, at this dealership is that they continued to pay him as lube tech, but because they were so overwhelmed with warranty work, they had him doing warranty work at lube tech pay. So where the technician, the quote unquote, the actual tech was getting 50% more per hour, he was expected to do the same work at a cheaper rate because he wasn't quote unquote a tech. He was stuck as a lube tech. So he asked to do the testing. He took some testing, but it got to the point where I got to go to the school or whatever, the actual training facility. Like they've got to send him away.
Right. Really invest in him now.
What's that?
Really invest in him now.
Well, yeah, now they have to actually send him because at that point now they can make him a quote unquote official tech. Now he's already been doing all the work. What incentive do you think that dealership had to do that? We have you doing pretty much all the work that a technician has to do because that's what we're doing most of the day is warranty work. And so but I'm going to save the money. Like it doesn't make any sense for me to go to send you to the school. He waited. He was loyal. It's one of the reasons I hired him is because I saw his loyalty. But he stuck by them. But they kept stringing him along. I've got stories like that for days where these technicians are getting absolutely burned. They're coming straight out of school and they either make it or they're gone. 25 hours within 6 months or 9 months. If you're not flagging that, you're gone. This is straight out of tech school. That's what they tell them as they come in. If you're not flagged, we'll give you a guarantee. But if you're not flagging 25 hours within 6 months or 9 months, you're gone. So if they're not making it for whatever reason, And some of these guys that I know, I know them from when I went through tech school. Some of these guys were decent techs. They were smart guys, maybe just a little slow on, proficiency, or, just how to be efficient around the bay and how to grab the right tools and maybe a service card or whatever, like just things like that. They just didn't know, because it takes time and experience. And so they got burned on that. Or the green guy that comes in and like nobody will teach them the faster way to do that job. Why? Why would they? They're like, they don't have time. They're on flat rate too. They're not even taking their lunches. That's just lost money for them. So why would they do that? Why would they take the time to mentor that person? And then the dealerships that are actually taking younger techs and pairing them with older technicians, I don't know how many people I've interviewed telling me that, yeah, so I got paired with somebody because I've got to spend X amount of hours with somebody else, a more senior technician, in order to become or be able to be left on my own. So yeah, I've got to put in the time. So I've got to be mentored, right? This person was just phoning it in. They didn't care. They didn't want to be the mentors. Like, I don't want to be anywhere around you. I don't want to have to teach you. I don't want to have to babysit you. I'm just going to scream at you, and any screw up is going to be your fault. And that's how they were treated. That's absolutely how they were treated. And then when COVID hit, who do you think was the first one to get cut? It wasn't the senior guy. It was a low man who had been quote unquote screwing up this whole time, because that's what he got reported to management. And now he's looking for a job. It's insane. And then what ends up happening is that guy can't find a job. So he goes to become an HVAC technician or a plumber or some garbage like that. And we lose somebody else in the industry.
That's the shame of it all, Dave. It's as terrible as that is to happen to anybody who's willing to try. It's these same people that we're crying about, that we are lacking, that it's getting dangerously low, that we're chasing off for situations like that. And I mean, I really think a lot of these dealership personnel, or maybe not even dealership only, but I mean, in situations like that, when they can't see past productivity for 1 week, I think that's insane.
Yeah.
And it's those people who probably have guaranteed positions and really solid pay. I would like to throw something out there real quick, if you gentlemen wouldn't mind.
Go for it, man.
I recently spoke with a technician friend of mine who is the shop foreman at a dealership local to me. And the guy makes excellent money. He makes six figures. But if you knew what this guy did and for how long he's been doing it for this dealership, you'd agree that he's worth every single penny. The guy was at this one dealership for over 25 years. He is a master diagnostician, certified through the OE on every repair, every maintenance, every car, every system, knows it inside and out, is the shop foreman, the lead tech, and he has his shop. He even calls it his shop. He has his shop structured, whereas he doesn't have to work on cars for a living. His job is to make sure everybody is on board and doing well and progressing and learning. So not only does he get his guaranteed pay to show up and do a good job and be the leader he's capable of being, that everybody loves. Everybody loves this guy, from upper management all the way down to the new technician, the service advisors, the customer. Everybody loves him. He also gets paid a bonus on shop productivity, as well as, they don't call it fix it right the first time scores, but things of that nature. And right. How do you want to guess? Do you want to guess how well that shop is doing?
Probably pretty well.
Insanely well from every aspect. Everybody is happy. That shop is the shop anyone would be absolutely blessed to work at. Everyone's happy. Everyone's smiling. The place is immaculate. You can eat off every surface in that shop. Matter of fact, he even walks around in a polo, slacks, and dress shoes. Well, steel tip, nice shoes though.
Right.
And
you know, that brings up kind of some of the next thoughts that I had. Was, as a whole, we need a dose of professionalism, especially in the independents, right? The dealerships bring, and you know, that's what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Hold on. Before you get on this here, just real quick. Is that dealership? Is that part of a larger dealership group?
It's not the biggest I've seen, but it's larger. It is not a single facility, if that's what you're asking. It's got multiple locations, but they got that big for a reason, you know. They run all their locations like that now.
Sorry, Lucas. Professionalism. Go ahead.
Well, so, I think we need a dose of professionalism, right? And we were talking a few minutes ago about the conversation that I was having with Jeff yesterday, and really talking about the way that the manufacturers view their dealership is an extension of the experience that client has when they purchase a car. And I know a lot of independent shops that do that, but I also know a lot of independent shops that don't do that, right? And we do things differently in my shop, and it's every single day that I hear from a client, I have never had an experience like this. And I'm always like, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Like, what part of your experience are we talking about? And so I think that we definitely can learn something from the professionalism level that we see in many dealerships, the cleanliness, the way they handle the clients. And I think for the most part, a lot of shops within our group are really hitting high marks there. Right? I really do. I think we're doing a good job. But I think there's things that we can learn from that dealership model. Now, you said something that you guys were talking about, and I'm sitting here thinking about this. You both know that I'm big in apprenticeships. I think they're really important. And the reason it's so important to me is some of the best times in my life were when I was a young man. I was working with my dad, my uncle, and other family members working on cars, right? That's how I fell in love with turning wrenches. It's where it started for me. And I think more and more folks don't get that opportunity today. But so many shop owners look at these apprentices and they say, hey, I need you to come out of high school and I need you to be a productive employee now, right? It's not going to happen.
Definitely not
realistic. You need to be realistic about this. And so they say, well, the schools aren't doing a good job because this guy came in, he didn't have a clue what he was doing. And I think it was Matt we were talking to who said the ASE master level certification was a base level proficiency. It's not that's not the end all be all, yet it takes years to get to that level of proficiency. And I keep talking to shop owners who expect to hire a kid right out of high school and have a guy that's building 40 hours a week. It's not realistic. We've got to raise them up. And that's one of the areas you either get a good dealership or a bad dealership.
Agreed.
So I think that's one of the ways that we can really learn from them because they have programs in place. We talk about Toyota all the time, Toyota and the T10 program, the whole 9 yards. Listen, Toyota's got it figured out. They've got a system that works. They know how to bring someone new in and train them up and make them a great technician. I think we need to learn from the dealership model. I don't think we need to go to the extent they do in some cases. And listen, I know a lot of very unhappy dealer technicians. I know a lot of guys who are trying to get out of the dealership right now. I know a lot of guys who have come to work for me from the dealership that never cared to learn beyond that vehicle they were working on right now. Right. And for instance, one of them was when the Ford, I think it was the door hinge or door latch recall happened. And he's like, look, I just want to do door latches. That's not even, is that a thing? He's like, yeah. He's like, all I did at the dealership was door latches. They call for like 6 hours. I can get them done in 40 minutes. I'm like, well, that's not going to happen here. I don't know what you expect. But, it's a common thing for them to kind of get tunnel vision in the direction they're going. How can we find the best part of the dealership and bring it into an independent shop? Like, where do we go from here towards that next level of professionalism for a technician? Where's that professionalism start at, Brandon?
Well, I'm not sure where a shop owner might find information like that unless he or she experiences it themselves or at least witnesses it, or other than listening to this show.
That's it.
But I think it's basically common sense. Now, I look at it like this: as a shop owner, you have to know. And Lucas, you're just getting started in this venture of yours. You have to know day in and day out, you're renting that backhoe for $700 a day just to dig in the mud.
Right.
You're realizing that this is definitely not profitable right now. This is an investment, a large investment of money.
Yep.
So I can't think of a shop owner that, at least none that I know, that have walked into decided they were going to open up shop, buy a building, or at least rent or lease a building on a property and start a business and expect to be profitable from day one. That's insane. How can you expect a young technician fresh out of school to do anything but cost you money
Right.
for a long time? Heck, even if he or she completes an oil change in a reasonable amount of time, we know oil changes are not typically very lucrative, if at all. It's a necessary thing that we have to do to maintain our customer's vehicle and keep them coming back to us. However, even if this young technician is doing oil changes and very minor services fluently without many mistakes, he or she's still not going to be generating a lot of profit in that bay where an experienced tech would be. How can we expect that person to be profitable with no experience? We have to invest. We have to look at that as maybe this technician is not going to be a money maker. It's going to actually cost us money for a while, but you know what? We're going to grow our own. We're going to invest in him and her, keep the technician happy, and allow them to gain experience here comfortably at our facility. So at one point in time, they're no longer going to cost money. They're going to generate money and be happy doing it.
So this came up the other day within ASOG, and I couldn't actually believe that I was reading it, right? I couldn't believe my eyes. And I didn't realize that people actually thought this, but one of the interesting things that has come up from time to time, and we talk about it often, I'd never heard somebody who actually believed it. They said, I'm not sending my people to training and paying for it, because what if they leave and go somewhere else? It's just going to help the next guy down the street. Why should I help this technician? Why should I try and grow this person from the ground up? I mean, what's your reason, Brandon? You've done so much, right? Dude, I don't know if you remember this. Years ago, I asked Jim Morton a question, and Jim said, there's only one person in the country that I know who has that answer. And I said, who's that? And he said, it's Brandon. You need to call Brandon. Here's his telephone number. Call him. I'm like, dude, this guy's writing articles and all kinds of stuff. He's never going to answer me. And I send you a text message and you're like, yeah, I've got a minute to talk. What's up? And I was like, hold up. Wait a minute here. Let me make sure we're on the same page. And you gave me an answer, and it was the correct answer, and it gave me tons of perspective, and I learned something completely new. But you've invested in our industry over and over and over again, right? Like, no BS. Thank you. We all appreciate it more than you know.
Oh man, no, it's my pleasure.
But so my question for you is, why?
Well, this is not me speaking right now. I heard somebody say this, and of course, I'm going to paraphrase here. But just the way that question was worded, what if I invest in a technician? I spend all this time and money and energy on this guy or this girl, and they leave. And I think a better question is, what if you don't invest in them and they stay?
Right.
How much money are you going to make then if they're not educated and they don't have the right tools, or worse, they can't make the money to buy the tools, and if they don't have the tools, they can't do the work. So, can you state that question just one more time for me, Lucas, please?
Yeah. So, why is it that you have invested so heavily in training the next generation? Why is it so important that we train the next generation, and how can we train them? How can we invest our money in training these people? Okay. Knowing they may leave tomorrow.
Gotcha. I know exactly what I'm going to say. I've been doing this, working on cars now, only about 22 years. I can tell you with confidence that the first 8 to 10 years of my career wasn't a total loss. I do want to say it was a tremendous waste of time. I didn't realize my potential then, and I didn't know how my mind worked, how I retained information. And I was spending my time and energy studying information the way it was taught to me in school. Learn this so you can pass a test. and I would learn it. I was always very book smart. I got straight A's almost my entire life. So I could pass any test. That was not a problem. The problem is retaining it so it became applicable. I wasn't learning the right way.
Right.
And I was just learning to pass a test, but it didn't actually click and make sense. I could just repeat it verbatim. I wasn't learning how things worked. And when I reached a turning point in my career, matter of fact, the reason why Jim probably turned you towards me, because he knew I was going to say just this. The way Jim taught me is the way I started to learn from that point forward after I met him. From that, probably that 8 to 10 year mark in my career is when he and I crossed paths, and it changed my career forever because he taught me how to be a self-learner.
Yeah.
He allowed me to focus on components, how components worked, for instance. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about a specific system or anything like that, but I'm just going to pick one that I frequently give an example of. When I talk about components, I mean things that apply to everything, like inductive devices like coils and relays and solenoids. These all work the same no matter what car we're faced with. They work the same on every car. How each one of those is controlled is different. So that's what Jim Morton always referred to me as the 85-15% rule. He said 85% of all the crap that happens on cars happens on all of them. And that's because of the physics involved. And that's something you, myself, or Dave, none of us can change. It is what it is.
Yep.
You can't change it.
Yep.
And that gives you the confidence to work on a Maserati or a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or even a little, Kia Sophia. It doesn't matter. They're all the same. That's the 85%. However, the 15% is what we have to research. That's how things work, how the engineers designed that component to work. In other words, we can make a spark with a 2-wire coil. We can also do that with a 3 or a 4-wire coil. We can do that and get the spark adequately delivered to the cylinders with a distributor or coil over plug, or we can implement OptiSpark, right? Or an old pole piece, ignition pickup. All these things are designed as trigger mechanisms to create the spark. You can read about that with good service information. So basically what I'm getting at is this. If we could focus our energy in our technicians, our up-and-coming technicians, sit them down and have a conversation with them and say, look, this is what I want you to focus on. Gaining the experience, the knowledge we need, the technical knowledge, having access to good service information, and purchasing the correct tools and learning all the ins and outs about not only what that tool can do, but also what it cannot do, its limitations.
Amen.
What is there that you can't fix? An artificial heart, a motorcycle, a curling iron, a helicopter, a Harrier jet. Why can't we fix those things? If I have the service information, the technical know-how, and the tools to do it, is there nothing I can't fix?
That's very true. Very true. So you bring up a topic, and I don't even know if you realized you were bringing up the topic, but I'm going to ask the question, should we be buying the technician's tools? And so, look, here's my reasoning for this. Matt and I were talking a while back, and it may have even been in a podcast where we talked about the fact that the automobile has a limited ceiling as far as repairs, right? We reach a point when we're asking a client to invest in a repair in their vehicle that there is a threshold where they're going to look at that and say, I think I'd rather just buy another car, right? Now, it's not as low as it is in the appliance world, but the folks in the appliance world are paying their technicians more money. They're buying their tools. They're giving them a company truck, right? Like, I can only use that excuse for so long. Should we be buying? I mean, you're talking about an investment of $30, $40, $50, $60, $70,000. I had a conversation with my insurance man a while back, and he said, well, I've got you covered for $40,000 for the tools in the shop. And I said, you better raise that just a touch. Like I can count on 4 shelves, $40,000.
Sure.
And he was blown away. Well, should we be thinking about that as a potential with technicians moving forward? And how can an independent shop really do that? I mean, is that something a technician wants?
I don't think a technician would ever turn that down. And I had a really, really close friend that I haven't actually spoke with in a while. Really good friend of mine named Pete Rudloff. And Pete had this way about him. He just did everything different than everyone else. And that's what I loved about Pete. He was scared of nothing. Nobody could tell Pete anything because well, I shouldn't say that. I don't mean it like he was cocky. I just mean Pete did his research and knew what he knew and set his mind to something, and he just did it. And one of the things he did was take on a very young, intelligent young lady, fresh out of school, and took her under his wing at the shop. And she had just did absolutely phenomenal, fantastic, very hard worker, put in the time. Good at what she did, wasn't scared of anything. Pete gave her the confidence she needed to pursue what she had to do. And one of the things Pete talked about doing, and I'm not quite sure if he actually did it, but it was definitely in discussion, was that purchasing tools for the technician and growing the technician, making them happy so they wouldn't want to leave, paying them what they needed, and investing the same time and energy he would want to invest in himself to grow himself as a knowledgeable and profitable technician. Asking questions like why would somebody want to leave? You know what I mean? If you could eliminate those reasons why and make somebody happy, keep them happy, why would they want to leave? And I think that's an excellent way of looking at things. So to answer your question, to buy a technician tools, I think if you want a technician, especially nowadays, to work on cars, they're going to need the tools. You can't expect them to buy the tools for a pay, and I'm just making up a number arbitrarily, for $10 an hour, whether they're hourly or flat rate or however you want to pay them, for $10 an hour when they can go work somewhere else. And all they have to do is fill out an application, and they have a job making the same amount of pay or more in some situations, with no, I'll call it, tool overhead. No reason to invest in tools. They can save their money and spend it on what they like to spend it on. I don't know. I think that's a tough call for me to make, specifically because I'm not very business savvy. But I do think if somebody approached me as a young technician and said, "Look, dude, what's it going to take to make you happy? Here's what I see that you're on a path to learning. You realize that you have to know how things work in general. You have to have the right tools, and you have to learn how to use those tools to be profitable. If I could promise you all those things and any kind of service information you could possibly need to solve a problem, is there a reason you could see in the future that you'd want to leave? If you can make the money you need to make and be happy?" My answer would be no. I'd love to stay in a facility like that. That's all I ever wanted.
Right.
You sound like a simple guy, though, Brandon. My techs don't want me to buy stuff for them. Well, some things. It depends, and it's almost like they want their independence. They want to own the stuff.
I understand that, and for me, nobody bought my tools either. You know something? If I can circle back real quick to when I was moonlighting for a while, earning that money at night, working hard during the day, but also working late at night to pocket some cash to help myself get ahead a little bit with the little girl on the way. I took that money, and I remember at one point in time, fellas, I had a stack of $26,000 cash in my sock drawer. And my wife looked at that, and she's like, "Wow, what are we going to do with that?" I said, "You're not going to be happy with what I'm going to say, but I'm going to spend it all on tools." And she says, "Why? You're crazy. Why would you do that? You just saved, for months, a better part of a year. Why would you do that?" And I told her, by me investing in these tools now, there's nothing to worry about. I can just keep doing what I'm going to do at a faster, more efficient pace. And at one point in time, when I keep buying these tools, I'm going to be so busy doing I'll call it my moonlighting work. It's almost going to be like a turnkey business. I can step away from my guaranteed paycheck because I'll now be earning more money working for myself. So I purchased all my own tools. I purchased all my expensive diagnostic equipment with my own money, and I don't regret it at all. It's changed my
But there's
career.
a difference between that and the shop or the technician that buys the equipment because the shop won't.
Well,
and we see that all the time in the forums. They're buying their own training and they're buying their own Pico or whatever. And hey, why are you dropping $5,000 or $6,000 on a fabulous e-scope? Nice machinery, by the way. Why won't the shop buy it? And my shop wouldn't buy that for me. I've asked. They said no.
The thing is, I think it's situations like that where the shop owner and the technician needs to sit down and have a conversation. Clearly, when I see shop owners buy factory OE level scan tools, and you gentlemen are shop owners, what's your average? I know they vary greatly, but what's your average run of the mill domestic factory scan tool capability cost you a year? A few $1,000s, right?
Yeah, $2,500 with the subscription plus the scanner.
I think I think I even saw yesterday the latest and greatest all-inclusive package with GM. I think is somewhere in the low to mid $3,000 range per year, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe that's an oversight, but my point is this: you see a value in that because I know if I buy that tool, I can handle GM, and you know what? We do a lot of GM. Well, my point is this: that $3,000 1-year subscription will only work for 1 year, and it will only work on GM. That $3,000 lab scope will work for the rest of your life if you don't damage it, hopefully, on everything you could possibly imagine with an electrical impulse. So again,
the sample rates get really slow, and so I'm gonna tell you the story, Brandon. So I have a tech named Brandon, and he wanted part of our agreement for him not to leave the shop was me buying him a scope. Like he had a snap-on scope, but he wanted a real scope, and he was deciding between the Pico and the E-scope. He ended up wanting the E-scope. He's like, I think E-scope's the right choice. So somebody was selling one online, and it was a hell of a deal. And so I didn't ask. I'm impulsive when I buy, and so I'm like, boom, here. I think it was like $2,600 I sent him, and I thought I was going to get what I see online. No, he sent me almost everything, but the actual scope itself is from 2007. It's like the old E-scope, which works. It works just fine. Unless you're on 4 channels. Then it slows way down. So slow that it won't pick up small intricacies in fuel injector signature wave patterns, which is what we were trying to diagnose.
I gotcha.
And my tech goes, yeah, the problem's the scope. I'm like, what are you talking about? It's fine. You've been using it this whole time. It works wonderfully. Look at this pretty touchscreen doodad I got you. Like, it's nice. And he's like, no, but once you have this thing on 4 channels, it slows way down. And I'm like, it can't be that slow. It's like, I think it's like 13 years old. I'm like, you don't know that. And no crap on the stupid boxes as 2007.
Yep. That was the limited version and was actually built for one thing, to analyze pressure waveform, something much slower. But no, I know what you mean though. And that's a disappointment when you invest that money and you don't get what you anticipated.
That's man, okay. We'll have to upgrade them later.
That's one of the tough things is that especially when technology changes at the rate that it does.
Yeah.
From a shop owner perspective,
right? That's exactly what I'm saying. Like, holy crap! Like, yeah, I get it. It's old, but it still works, kinda. Well, not really. Like, not when you get deep into it, because he hit the brick wall. Like, he got to the point. It's like, hey, I kind of need not only does he need something faster, he needs more channels because he wants to be able to scope everything. So all at the same time, so he can get them all like lined up with all the buttons and doodads that thing does.
Understood. I've been down that road for sure.
Oh Lord, buttons
get expensive,
David.
They do.
Have you seen the thing? Like, there's like, and he knows how to work it. Like, this is one thing he got mad at me about. He's like, you have to read the specs. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you look up the model number and you read the specs before you buy it.
Yes, this is true.
Listen,
you got to take my side, Brandon. You're not helping me.
I'm sorry.
what you've got to learn about David is David doesn't read anything, right? Impulsive is the word.
Skim, yeah.
Yeah, impulsive is the word we use for David here. It's very much, oh, I like it. I just bought it.
What? I scan, yeah. I mean, I don't read, like, he takes the time to read every word precisely as it's written. I don't. I mean, you get the gist and you move on.
In this case, you did not get the gist, bro.
Well, I should have stopped when the guy didn't take a picture of the actual scope. He took a picture of the box, the case, took a picture of the surface, which he wanted to keep his old laptop. So he was giving with the old scope. He was giving the surface that comes, but it wasn't the one that has the scope attached to the back side of it, like that.
Yeah, the little box is square.
Yeah, which is what I thought I was getting, because I'm like, oh, this will be great. We don't have to have like laptop and then a cart and all that junk there.
Yeah, you probably
just walk up to the thing and hook it up. I should have read the I should have read the specs. Yeah.
That's right.
I should have asked for the model number. Can I see the model number, please?
Oh, dude. Well, so you're going to buy him another one, though, right?
Yeah, I'm going to have to now. I feel bad. I mean, he's getting really proficient with this software, and it amazes me what he's able to do with it and how much information he's able to extract.
And I'm sure you, Dave, as a shop owner, can now see the value in him him having access to a functional lap scope, something that's going to be capable, because that's going to solve most of your problems. Being able to.
Well, we had a lap scope. We've always had a lap scope. Like my very first scanner when I first opened my shop was a Pegasus, and the reason I bought the Pegasus was it had a 2-channel lap scope.
Gotcha.
And I wanted to be able to scope things, and so that was the reason why I bought that. And then we went to a Veris Pro, but we used the lap scope consistently to current ramp and just like basics.
Okay.
But it was a lot faster to diagnose it with the lap scope than it was to do anything else. I could get like visual confirmation of the failure, which was huge for me because we've always adopted pictures and things like that, and being able to see it visually and then show the customer like that little squiggle is not supposed to be there. There's your failure. That was priceless to me. And then we went to a Zeus, and we still have the Zeus, but this is next level. Like, I don't think you could compare. It's a great beginner scope, the Zeus. I think if you're going to dabble in lab scope usage, go with the Zeus. Guided component, just for the guided component stuff. I think that's fantastic. It at least gets you, especially if you're not getting any support from the shop or the shop owner, or you don't have a shop foreman or somebody that can guide you in scope usage, and you want to dabble. I think it's a great starter. But you're gonna quickly
listen
if you get into it. I'm trying to make a point here. If you get hardcore into it, you're gonna get to the point where you're gonna need something a little bit more sophisticated. Because the more you dabble, the more you'll realize I can extract a lot more information out of these wave patterns if I have some tools. And you quickly run out of functionality in the Zeus. It can't keep up. I mean, just like pressure wave patterns, right? The little box that Snap-on has with their transducer, it's expensive.
Sure.
But it cuts the bottom of the pattern. Like, it cuts the thing off. And I need to see that squiggle. Like, what happened to my squiggle? What?
That's the first thing Brandon ever said to me was, you know that Snap-on pressure transducer sucks, right?
I didn't know that. I had no idea. Like, my tech told me that, and he goes, yeah, that's what the Snap-ons do. They cut off the bottom here. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I don't know what it is. We thought it was he thought it was the box, or maybe the transducer. I don't know. He thought it was either the box or the pressure transducer, or one of the two. And so we bought a different one, and he hooked it up, and lo and behold, the stupid thing at the bottom is still cut off. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you, man. So, we went all ATS on that. And now he has beautiful patterns that he can put all the arrows and all the lines, and I don't even know what the hell it all does, but he gives me the information I'm looking for, which is all you really want as a shop owner, right?
Very
or as
true.
a service advisor. You just need the information. See, that squiggle's not supposed to be there. That tells you, your timing's off, or there's something wrong with the exhaust camshaft. It's not in time. That's it.
So look, I don't mean to get off that topic, but I'm going to. I've been struggling with this conversation lately. Skundrich and Compton and me and David and a number of other people have been around and around on the subject, Brandon. Hack shops and hack techs. What are we going to do about them?
Who's to blame for the demise of the industry? Is it the hack shop owner, or is it the hack tech?
Well, I don't know many me personally, I don't know many hack shops. I have witnessed many hack technicians, and I can give you my own personal experience. We all make mistakes. Things happen, Hopefully you don't make the same mistake more than once. If you do, not too many times more. But, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has accidents. Everyone could be called a hack in a situation like that. It's whether we do it over and over again and for the wrong reasons. In other words, it wasn't an accident. It was carelessness. I worked with a technician who was the former, or I should say, when I arrived at that shop, he was the go-to guy. The guy that I just described, I was trying to be in that last situation. That's who he was when I got there, supposedly. And the gentleman was absolutely brilliant, but he stopped learning about 10 years ago. And when I say 10 years ago, 10 years at the time I was at that shop, 10 years before that. So he was excellent up to like year 2000. And after that, things started falling apart. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
He just stopped learning. Well, and I watched it day in and day out to compensate for his lack of ability or lack of knowledge. He started to work faster and take shortcuts, and then shortcuts became frustration, and then it became rip and tear. And I'm talking about stuff like putting on, a car comes in with a failed AC compressor and just slapping on a new compressor. Heck, not even oil balancing the compressor, just putting it on, bolting it up, sucking it down, charging it, and going. And the thing comes back hammering, and there's metal everywhere. And I mean, he's done this many, many times. And that's just, I'm not trying to call out any specific situation. That's just the type of shortcuts I'm talking about. Real careless work. Cutting holes in floors to sneak fuel pumps out of rather than, man, I'm not kidding, and welding them shut. And we're talking about nice cars.
There's
too.
Nobody did. What are you talking about? Are you serious?
Telling you, I witnessed
like
it.
You see that in the what's the Scotty Kilmer Facebook groups. But this was in a shop?
I'm telling you, I saw this happen. Now, the powers that be were not aware of this. I saw it. I'm like, what in the heck are you doing? I chose a few different words, but you can imagine.
Right.
Oh, it'll be fine. I'll just weld it up when I'm done. They'll never know. And I talk about stuff like compromising structural integrity of a unibody. And like, you don't even think about things like this. You're just cutting holes to make your life easier. Well, it's moves like that. And does the guy want to be a hack? No, he's a really nice guy and he wants to do a good job, but he's not making money if he's doing things the right way. So by literally cutting things in half, he's saving time. And that's how he's trying to make his money. But the problem is these cars keep coming back. And at some point, how can you even hide what's been done? How can you make things right? You know what I mean? When there's clearly a hole cut in the floor that's been welded shut, like, for goodness sake. So, I did it again. What was the question? Sorry.
Well, no, I mean, is it the hack shop or is it the hack tech that's ruining?
Yeah, is it that guy's fault that this industry is
his
lacking
fault.
Technicians?
It's his fault for not wanting to get the training. I think it's the shop owner's fault because I know for a fact the shop owner, because I've talked to him about this. I said, look, this guy's not cutting it the way he's doing things. I mean, this is dangerous. Someone's going to get hurt. You're going to wind up in a lawsuit or buying somebody a car or something. And it's pretty much, don't worry about him. He'll be fine. Well, it got to the point where I then blamed it on the shop when stuff like this started happening. I was pulled aside and said, look, I need you to drop what you're doing. Go make that car over there that so-and-so worked on. Go make it right, because the customer's really ticked off right now and we got to get this done immediately. So I drop what I'm doing. I go right the wrongs. 3-4 hours later, the car's working again. And I've lost half a day trying to fix his goof up, knowing darn well I'm going to get paid for it. Well, in the end, I didn't. And I said, well, what gives? Oh, well, I can't pay you because I already paid him. I said, that's easy. Take the money back out of his paycheck and pay me. We're not even talking about being unfair. That's expected. You don't think he expects to still get paid for that, do you? And he said, you're darn right he does. So that happened once or twice, and it was about that time where I had put in my notice, because there was no getting away from it. It was at that point it became the shop owner's problem, not willing to face a problem.
I was probably making him money.
It was
banging out work,
and that was bothering me, and that didn't sit right with me. I certainly was not going to have it taken out of my end, or cutting customers discounts because you play golf with them. If you have $1,000 total job and you want to knock $200 off, knock it off the bill, but don't knock it off the flat rate.
Amen.
And I'm telling you, I'd have a 10-hour job that got knocked down to 6.5 hours because he knows the guy.
As soon as you said that, I'm sitting in a class. This was a different coaching company, and I remember the coach specifically talking about shaving flat rate hours off of. In fact, as of, I'll have to go back and see if I've ever tweaked it. I used to pay X amount of hours for a front brake service, is what I call it, right? Because we got to clean the pins and all that doodad stuff. And so I remember specifically going from where I was paying that person and just shaving off a couple of ticks, because the tech was knocking it out in 45 minutes to an hour, and I was paying more than that. And, hey, keep the price the same, but maybe shave off a couple ticks once the technician gets proficient, to allow you to be profitable on some of these other jobs where you kind of get hosed on.
Of course, I'm speaking from a technician's perspective, but I don't think it's right. We agreed that I would do this job.
No, it's wrong.
Yeah.
I totally did it. I remember the guy's face. I remember thinking, man, okay. I didn't hesitate. I'm like, okay, well, that at least pushed me to a profitable number on those front brake services. If they were able to get them done in 45 minutes to an hour, I was going to make bank on those. But that was the reason why.
Yeah, plain and simple, if you're taking out of somebody else's end to line your pockets, I think it's wrong. I think there's a better way of doing it. If you got to raise your prices to make more money, then do that. At least it's up front to the customer and they're aware. But the technician agrees to do a job. Tell that technician before he starts the job that you're knocking 30% off. See how likely he is to get it done or want to do it. Don't tell him after he does it. That's what bothered me. I'd find out afterwards what happened to this 20-hour job that's now 14.
Right. That's shady, right? I mean, that's the only way you can look at that. And the fact that we still have people who do stuff like that. And I'll be honest, I think in many ways, a lot of that is, we've said this in the show before. It is not that some shop owners are evil. It's not that they're out to get somebody. It's that they struggle with profitability in the first place. They don't even know what their numbers are, right? Especially in independent shops. They don't know their numbers in the first place. They don't know if they're profitable or not. All they know is things are tight right now. It's really tough right now. I'm having a hard time paying everybody. They're looking for every opportunity they can get to kind of keep things afloat. Now, they don't realize, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. There's a system that works in this industry, right? There's a financial system that works. And if you'll work that system, you'll have money in your bank account, right? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you'll run the shop in a profitable manner, you don't have to worry about paying your technicians. But for some reason, it seems like that's always the thing that gets cut first, right? Or the shop owner kind of looks at the tech and says, I'm not so sure. Maybe this comeback was your fault, right? And you know, the conversation consistently comes up in ASOG. Well, he messed this up. Should I take it out of his paycheck? Hell no. You're the business owner. It's your responsibility. It's your liability. You have the potential to earn more money, right? Because you're taking the risk. Don't you dare put that risk on that technician. That's not right, man.
I would say this, in a situation like that, I would expect the shop owner to come to me and say, look, there's an issue. Let's get it ironed out and figure out what went wrong. If it's your fault, great. Let's figure out how this doesn't happen again. The next time, if it was a true oversight, okay, let's fix it. But if it's ignorance, maybe the next time it's on you. I don't know. I just think there's a better way of handling it than jumping the gun and saying this is coming out of your paycheck.
In my opinion, I don't think there's ever anything that should come out of a technician's paycheck. Now we have had little instances where somebody's backed into a car or something and they felt really bad about it. And they're like, look, I'm paying for this, right? I'm sorry. I don't care what you say. I'm paying for it. If you don't let me pay for it, I'm going to take it and get it fixed right now. I'm paying for it.
It's illegal in Kansas.
Right. Well, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't ever let them pay for anything. I do my very best to make sure that doesn't happen because that's part of owning a business.
I backed into a same exact scenario. I backed into a car, accidentally, and the shop owner was obviously ticked off, right? And I expected something. I expected at minimum to pay the insurance deductible on it over time or something like that. There would have been no argument there. You realize that man deducted $700 out of my paycheck once and done. Didn't ask me. Totally illegal. Just did it. I let it go. Crazy. But I mean, no warning. My paycheck was $700 short.
So that's I guess one of the arguments that we had, or at least I tried to make with Mario, and I think we did it with Cody as well, is like, you're obviously a top level technician. Why put up with that?
Well, I didn't. I left after that. But
there are technicians that put up with it.
There will, and I think it has a lot to do with confidence, Dave. I think they don't feel they're any good, and not to say that I'm trying to be cocky or anything like that. I don't think I'm above anyone else. I do know what I'm capable of producing for a shop, and I feel like I should be able to work with a shop so everybody's happy and profitable. I don't want to go to a shop to just make a paycheck. I want to go to a shop to be a solutions provider. I want to be someone, I want to be a valuable part of the team, and I want to help others become successful too. Because I can tell you, I'll be honest with you, one of my goals, once I realized my potential and I started to be successful, I had a discussion with Jim Morton, and I had said to him that, look, one of my goals, my ultimate goal is to take a kid fresh out of high school, wanting to enter the service technician world, and do what I did for myself for him in 3 to 5 years. Have him him or her be above and beyond where I'm at in capability, and on the path to self-learning and improvement every day, in less than 5 years. And I think it's very possible. That truly is a goal of mine. That's what I wanted to do. So I never felt above anybody or anything like that. I just wanted to be a valuable player in the team.
Right. Well, these technicians need to get the confidence, though. They need to understand at least the state of the industry. The market's theirs right now. And like somebody tried to pull that. Any technician worth their salt should be able to know that, hey, all I have to do is put some feelers out there and I'll have another shop in a matter of days. All I have to do is jump on Facebook and say, hey, I'm looking for a shop in this area. Like, I own my own Pico. I own my own eScope. I buy my own training. That was the argument that, I don't know who I made it with. It's like, that should be their credential. Their credentials, like I pay for my own training. I pay for my own CTI subscription or whatever it is. That's enough. There would be shop owners, jumping over or tripping over themselves to get in front of that guy to hire him.
I think if there are shop owners listening to what I have to say from a technician's perspective is this. I became a good technician when I became confident.
Yeah.
I became confident when I had the tools and the resources to perform the analysis to make the diagnosis. So what I'm getting at is if I had the tools and the information and you let me learn, right? You provide a learning environment for me, and I mean paying for classes. I am going to make that money back. If I go to class and it's $100, how fast am I going to make that back?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It's a no-brainer. And something like we have nowadays, and I'm not boasting CTI because I'm a CTI instructor, but we have a heck of a deal. I mean, $99 a month and unlimited class attendance. You can see as many classes as you want for $99 a month in the comfort of your own home. And we're interactive. We've got cameras, we've got microphones on, we've got chats and questions and answers, and we're working on a whole bunch of new technology where we can have switching devices, or we have multiple cameras, and we're interfacing scan tools via Bluetooth and everything. And that learning environment's phenomenal for a measly $100 a month per technician. I think you'd be foolish not to capitalize on something like that.
Oh, definitely.
But I'm speaking to shop owners when I say, give your technician the ability to learn. Let them grow as technicians. Grow them, invest in them. Be part of their team as they are part of yours, and they're going to want to stay.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode of the ASOG podcast. We have even more conversations coming your way from the most influential technicians in the industry today. So if you'd like to catch these episodes early, you can do so by becoming a patron. Just go to the asog.site and click on the Become a Patron Now button. Becoming a patron helps support the show, gets you several perks, and is tax deductible. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast and on YouTube. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, or if you have any topic suggestions, please reach out to me via email. My email address is david@asog.site. That's david@asog.site. Until next time.